Hello everyone, it's Mallory here with All About Cats. In this week's video, we're going to be taking a look at a very popular cat food brand from one of the world's largest pet food companies. And that brand is Purina Beyond. As you probably know, Purina owns a lot of different brands. You'll probably know them for Fancy Feast, Friskies, Purina Cat Chow, Purina One, and many, many other brands sold around the world. The Purina Beyond line is an answer to the increased interest in foods made from traceable, identifiable, and so-called natural ingredients. Whether they're wet or dry or from any of the various Purina Beyond lines, all Purina Beyond foods emphasize this idea of traceable, identifiable, and higher quality ingredients. Again, Purina Beyond offers both wet and dry varieties of food, and these are broken down into several lines. So they have a grain-free line, which includes both wet and dry foods, all free of corn, rice, wheat, and other grains. And then they have an indoor line, which has slightly elevated levels of fiber and slightly lower fat content than their other recipes. They have a line of non-GMO recipes, the Simple Origins line, which includes canned foods that were made without genetically modified organisms. And then they have the Wild line. The Wild line includes both dry and wet foods. The dry foods promise to be at least 38% protein, and they include freeze-dried chunks of meat. Now, the wet foods in the Wild line contain a mix of muscle meat and organs. They place a really heavy emphasis on animal-derived ingredients, and they seem to be following a somewhat prey-inspired recipe blueprint. So these foods seem to be emulating some of the qualities that you would be finding in your cat's prey. Across the board, Purina Beyond's recipes are made without artificial colors and flavors, as well as potentially harmful preservatives like BHA and BHT. A lot of other Purina brands like Fancy Feast, for example, which we reviewed a couple of months ago, really don't give you that much information on their ingredient sourcing. And that's really Purina Beyond's biggest selling point. They tell you a lot about where their ingredients are coming from. So if you go onto the Purina Beyond website, you're able to trace all of the ingredients that are appearing in their recipes. The company claims that most of their ingredients are sourced from North America, but apparently they're also sourcing ingredients from France, China, New Zealand, and a few other countries around the world. They note on the website that all of their suppliers are evaluated according to a 32-step evaluation process, but it's not really clear if this is a process that is common among all Purina foods and they're just using it for the marketing edge, or if this is something unique to Purina Beyond. And like the majority of Purina brands, all Purina Beyond foods are manufactured in several Purina-owned facilities in the United States. According to research done by the team at Petful.com, it looks like Nestlé-Purina brands have been recalled 5 times over the last 15 years. And one of those recalls involved a Purina Beyond dog food. So all in all, it looks like Purina Beyond has been recalled a total of 1 time in its history. So in order to really get a feel for what Purina Beyond has to offer, I took a look at 3 of their most popular recipes. So I purchased all of these products independently and then took a closer look at them. The first recipe that I want to look at is a dry food from their grain-free line. So it's their ocean whitefish and egg recipe. The first couple of ingredients in this recipe are ocean whitefish and chicken meal. So both of these are good sources of animal-derived protein. Interestingly, ocean whitefish is not a particular species of fish. It refers to a group of marine fish that includes tilefish and other species, and these are very, very commonly used in pet foods. Like a lot of grain-free foods, this recipe contains a couple of different ingredients coming from peas. So it contains both pea protein, a concentrated source of plant protein, as well as pea starch, which serves as a binding agent. Cassava root flour serves as another binding agent and helps to bump up the food's carbohydrate content. After this series of plant ingredients, we finally see some egg. The recipe includes egg product, and then it goes into a series of other kind of secondary ingredients. Overall, this looks like a pretty typical grain-free dry cat food. It does contain animal ingredients as the first 2 inclusions on the list, but we're also seeing quite a few plant-based ingredients in there as well. At about 42% protein, 17% fat, and 41% carbohydrates, this food looks like it has pretty moderate protein content, a lot of carbohydrates, and relatively low fat content. While the food may have higher quality ingredients than some other dry foods on the market, this isn't really something that I would choose for my cats. Between its low moisture content and high carbohydrate content, this doesn't really look like a species appropriate choice. Purina Beyond's ocean whitefish and egg recipe costs about 17 cents per ounce, making it a moderately priced grain-free dry cat food. The next recipe that I want to look at is pretty similar to the first one that we reviewed. The biggest difference is that it is made with white meat chicken instead of that ocean whitefish. So it's their white meat chicken and egg recipe. Again, a lot of similarities to the last recipe that we reviewed. The ingredient list starts with chicken and is followed by chicken meal. So just like the recipe we reviewed earlier, this food is using a combination of fresh, moisture-rich meat and dehydrated meat meal in order to get that protein in. Pea protein, pea starch, and cassava root flour serve as binders and sources of plant protein, and then the food incorporates some dried egg product as an additional source of animal protein and beef fat as a source of fat. So again, this is looking almost identical to the first recipe we looked at, except it doesn't contain fish. And interestingly, it has essentially the same nutrient profile. So according to the guaranteed analysis, this food also is about 42% protein, 41% carbohydrates, and 17% fat on a dry matter basis. And again, I would have to make the same final judgments on this recipe. It might be a little bit better than some of the other dry foods on the market, those that contain questionable animal byproducts or artificial colors, but it's ultimately not something that I would choose for my cats due to its excessive carbohydrate content and its lack of moisture. Purina Beyond's grain-free white chicken and egg recipe costs about 21 cents per ounce. Again, it's a moderately priced dry cat food. The third and final recipe that I want to take a look at is from Purina Beyond's Wild line. This particular recipe is their turkey, liver, and quail recipe. The recipe contains quite a few different sources of protein. So the first ingredient on the list is turkey, and then it's followed by chicken, and then something they refer to simply as liver. So we don't really know which animal this liver is coming from. It could be beef liver, or it could be pork liver. We really don't know. There are just a lot of question marks around that mysterious liver inclusion. After turkey broth, the recipe contains quail, and then it specifies that it contains chicken liver in addition to that first instance of liver. The food contains some carrots, which are potentially added as a source of additional nutrients or fiber, and then it goes on to contain egg product and chicken heart as additional sources of animal-derived nutrition. So overall, even though the food does contain that little bit of carrots, this definitely looks like a species-appropriate recipe. It contains a nice, diverse array of muscle meats and organs, and it seems to offer prey-inspired nutrition as the label suggests. I wasn't a huge fan of the fact that it included this generic liver, but there's no indication that this is necessarily a bad ingredient. It might be a concern if you're looking to avoid certain ingredients due to food sensitivities, but other than that, this should be an acceptable inclusion in your cat's food. According to the guaranteed analysis, this food is about 57% protein, 34% fat, and 9% carbohydrates on a dry matter basis. At about 48 cents per ounce, this food is a little bit on the expensive side as far as wet foods are concerned. If you're feeding a typical 10-pound cat, that might add up to about $3 per day. So we're done taking a look at some of their top recipes and have kind of established a sense of what Purina Beyond has to offer. But how much does it cost? Purina Beyond's foods are moderately priced. They're some of the more expensive items that you're going to see on a grocery store shelf. Their dry foods are going to cost typically somewhere between 34 and 42 cents per day if you're feeding a typical cat. And their wet foods will range from somewhere around $2.50 per day up to closer to $4 per day if you're feeding a typical 10-pound cat. So overall, is Purina Beyond going to be a good choice? After looking at a lot of the different cat foods that are included in this Purina family of brands, I would say that Purina Beyond could be one of the better options. Their foods do seem to have a slightly higher level of ingredient quality than some others, so if you're looking to avoid potentially lower value ingredients like animal byproducts and nameless animal meals, then you might want to give Purina Beyond a try. Of course, as we saw looking at their Purina Beyond Wild food earlier, their foods do contain some of those generic ingredients like liver, but generally they're not including those lower value byproducts that you'll see in a lot of other brands. Their lineup really varies in quality, so I would say that their grain-free dry foods are certainly not something that I would choose for my cats, but at the same time, some of their options from the Wild line, especially the canned foods, seem to be some of the better cat foods you can buy. So overall, it really depends on which options you're looking at. If you're considering Purina Beyond, I would probably start by exploring some of the options in the Wild line and then considering some of the options in the other lines that they have on offer. To make things a little bit more straightforward, let's see how Purina Beyond measures up to the All About Cats standard. So in terms of species appropriateness, I'm going to give them a 6 out of 10. Some of their recipes, like the one we looked at from the Wild line, is certainly more species appropriate than others in the Purina Beyond selection. So it kind of balances itself out, and we're going to land on a 6 out of 10 for species appropriateness. Now, as for ingredient quality, I would give them a 7 out of 10. We really don't know all that much about the ingredient quality here, but we do see that they're steering away from animal byproducts and other potentially lower value ingredients. As for product variety, I'm going to give them an 8 out of 10. They offer a large selection of dry and wet foods as well as treats, with plenty of options for cats of varying tastes and needs. And in terms of price, I'm going to give them a 7 out of 10. Again, this is a moderately priced cat food brand. And as for customer experience, I'm going to give them an 8 out of 10. People seem to really be happy with Purina Beyond. I've read a lot of customer reviews, and most of them are positive. I haven't really been able to find a lot of negative reviews of this brand. And as far as recall history is concerned, I'm going to give them a 5 out of 10 according to the All About Cats standard. The brand has been recalled once in its history, and other Purina brands have been recalled numerous times. Overall, I'm going to give Purina Beyond a 6.8 out of 10 rating, or a B- grade. So that's about it for our review of Purina Beyond. I hope that you found it helpful and that it gives you a little bit of a better sense of what you're looking at when you see this food on the shelf. Purina Beyond foods are available in a wide variety of retailers, so you're going to find them at big box stores, some groceries, as well as a lot of different pet specialty retailers. Online, they're also very readily available, and if you're interested in taking a closer look, go ahead and check out the links in the description. I'll have placed links to all of the products mentioned here in the description so you can take a look for yourself. And of course, while you're in the description, you'll also find a link to sign up for our free recall alert program. When you're signed up to this program, you're going to receive the news every time there's another recall in the United States, and it's a great way to stay informed and help to keep your cat safe. Again, thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope that you found it useful. If you did, please go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. It helps us out a lot. And if you have any more questions about Purina Beyond or anything else related to cat care or nutrition, please let us know in the comments. If you're interested in more cat food brand reviews, product reviews, buyer's guides, and information on all things cats, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single upload. Thank you again, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.